Oh my goodness. We are live with Reverend Dr. Linda Smith. And Dr. Linda, we're leading this series called Getting Better Together, getting healthier, happier, wealthier, and wiser. And this is about transformation. This is about helping people truly transform. So we're going deep, super deep. And this upcoming week, we're going to be talking about one of your favorite topics, which is the power and the practice of forgiveness. Tell us a little bit about why that is so important when it comes to living powerfully and getting better together.
Okay. Well, thank you. For me, one of the greatest gifts that we've all been blessed with is the gift of forgiveness. When we allow the wounds of unforgiveness to remain and linger in our souls and our spirit, it stops us from experiencing the fullness of the gift of life.
Mm.
And God wants us to be healed and made whole. And so, one of the things that Jesus said is, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. But when we hold on to things that does not give us life, it stops us from living to the fullness. And unforgiveness is one of those life struggles. Unforgiveness steals our lives, our joy, our peace, and our hope. And
Mm.
it's a state of being unwilling or unable to forgive yourself or someone
Mm.
has wronged you. And as a result of that, it creates these emotion and mental distress, such as anger and bitterness, and we have this rage inside of us for punishment or restitution. So it can really have a negative effect on our health, our relationship, and even our community. It's an open wound, as I said, an open wound that needs to be healed. So when we began to really focus on forgiveness, forgiving ourselves first, then it can have a very positive impact on our lives, because though it has been proven that people who hang on to unforgiveness experience higher incidence of stress and heart disease and high blood pressure and depression and all of those kind of things that come from the results of unforgiveness. So you can see how detrimental to our lives that it is. I'd like to just share a short personal story. I was in a domestic abuse situation, and after I had gotten out of it, I was really still bitter by it. And I had to come to that place in my life where I had to forgive myself for
Mm.
hanging on to the bitterness and the anger and the shame and all of those negative emotions before I could truly be set free from the situation that I was in. Although I was no longer physically in it, I was mentally still in that domestic
Mm.
abuse situation because I was allowing the anger and the shame and all of that rage was building up inside of me. And so when I was able to let go of that, I was really set free. I was liberated.
Mm. I love that. I love that so much. Part of what I love most about you is when we're all willing to tell our stories. We're all willing to put it out there. And you're saying, hey, oftentimes you were in a domestic violence situation, which in itself, right, is part of what I would say is required to admit, number one, I was in this situation, and number two, here's what I had to do to be set free. So if you were talking to someone right now who's in a similar situation, what advice would you share with them about just looking to yourself? Because we're going to walk through this process on Monday. Monday at 6 p.m. we'll be at Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Baptist Church, and we're going to be talking about this is the science, it's the spirit, we're bringing it up, it's the mind, it's the thoughts, it's the emotions, right? All of that matters when it comes to living powerfully. So just talk real quick. If you were speaking to someone who was in an early phase of whether it's domestic violence, whether it's, some other type of abuse, I'm plugging my computer. Bear with me. What would you say to them? Mm. Sorry. What would you say to someone who was in the middle of something that was tormenting them, that was causing them negative emotions, where they knew they were plugged up? Because oftentimes, like you said, we don't know that we'd even need to forgive someone. But what would you say to someone who's in the middle of some shenanigans right now about what they can do?
Well, I think the first thing that I would remind people that forgiveness is an act of the will. And to some people, forgiveness may seem like uh, we're weak, or we're letting in, or we're letting an undeserved person win. But it has really no connection to weakness or even to emotion. I think I've shared that with people more than I can think of, because that's what holds us. That if I forgive this person, I'm letting them win. No, forgiveness is not granting because the person deserved to be given. No one deserves to be forgiven. Forgiveness is a deliberate act of love, mercy, and grace. And so it's a powerful concept for each of us that involves an intentional decision to let go of the resentment and anger. The act that hurt or offend us might always be with you, but working on forgiveness can lessen the grip that it has on you. So, the ability to be able to forgive is not really about the other person, it's really about you, setting you free from those negative emotions that are sort of holding you in captivity. So, I share that with individuals, and then I say, again, it's a conscious choice to move away from negative emotion and find peace within yourself. So I always ask people, are you okay with where you are now? Do you believe that you deserve to have peace in your life? And so that gets people to thinking about that there is another choice, as opposed to living in unforgiveness. And then I talk about the benefit of forgiveness, that it leads to improve mental and emotional and physical health, and better relationship, number one, with yourself, and a better relationship with those around us. So I normally like to just, I always share my story, and I talk about how, because I know how it's impacted me, how it's impacted people that I've coached and been in ministry with, and just try and bring them to that place, uh, to let them know that forgiveness really is a gift that you give yourself, because it frees you from the burdens of holding on to negativity and to experience life abundantly.
I love it. So what we're going to be doing on Monday is really taking people through a practice, talking about the power of, but really taking you through the practice of. And we're going to do it in a couple of different ways. One of the things you brought me to is, kind of reminding us all that we need to. This is about empowerment, but it's also about healing. And it really is. We can heal. It's together, right? It's better when we do this work together. This is about the Getting Better Together empowerment series. And we've already talked about awareness, levels of awareness. We talked about the difference between transformation and motivation, like changing yourself at a DNA level. This is part of that, cleaning out the old so that you can pour into the new, giving you new information, giving you new practices when you really haven't got rid of this is what Debrina calls the gunk and the junk, right? The turning those old wineskins to use biblical terms, right? So this is the clearing out. This is the freeing yourself. It's that, that burden that, you're carrying around the world on your shoulders because somebody, molested you as a child, for example, or someone, in a relationship as an adult, it was an abusive relationship, or something happened at work where some people did you wrong, or something, right? These things happen and you're like, let them be. The only way for them to truly, they could be in your past, but you can be carrying them around every place you go. So really this work is about transforming you, giving you some freedom so that you can move truly powerfully, truly free. It's like free your mind and the rest will follow. But it's your mind, it's your heart as well. It's that spirit. The freedom is really at all the levels, right?
Yes. And so sometimes we always and I talk for believers and Christians and followers of Christ, and I know this audience reach more than that. But I think even if you just think about from the perspective of the divine, that we have to, God has granted us forgiveness. And so, how do we accept that forgiveness? We accept that forgiveness by forgiving ourselves, because the whole idea behind forgiveness is being free. Forgiveness frees us. it liberates us. And it's the only path towards life abundantly, life fulfillment of joy and peace. Because we cannot have the fullness of forgiveness, which is love, until we let go of those things that hold us in captivity. When we're stuck, and you use the language of stuck, it means that there is some more forgiveness to be done. So that's why I say forgiveness is a process, and it's more than about words. It's about us consciously um, practicing and really naming our anger, our sadness, our hurts, our feel. And sure, we're going to have those, and that's okay. But the reality is, if we're lingering, if that becomes our life, then that's not what life is meant to be. Love embraces the best of who we are, and being able to let go of those past darkness, as I sometimes refer to them as, that holds us back. And this living powerfully together is that we draw from each other. And when we love and we care and we forgive each other, you may say something to a person one day, and that person may take it in a very negative way, and your intentions was never that. Well, we all ought to be able to go back to our sisters or brothers and say, hey, I am so sorry that I offended you. It was not my intent, but please forgive me. And it's what frees us to live in a world of peace and power and hope. So I love this better together, because we support each other, we lean on each other, and we see the best of each other, and together we move forward in a life-giving way.
You know what I love also about the Better Together? You have these amazing people like you who are, I mean, people may not know your doctorate is in this concept of transformation, right? This is who you are. This is what you do, but you've helped many, 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 many people. This is your area of expertise, right? Transformation, moving to and through from where you were to where you want to be. And so when you call this a journey and this is a practice of, I think the thing that I love most about the Living Powerfully experience is it is about all the things, right? No matter where you are in life, creating these tools and skills so that you remind yourself scientifically, right? Neuroscience, positive psychology, choices that you make. You said week one was saying it's the power of self-command. It's like we can do this. We have the power within us to live powerfully, period. We're just layering on these other elements saying, hey, what are your saboteurs? What are the things that, from a childhood, how you might show up differently? We have people look at their saboteurs, right? To say, what are some of these things? Some of these things, some of the saboteurs that we have are based on, most of them, right, are based on things that happened in our childhood. So if we're willing to forgive, even flash back, right? It's possible that your younger self needs to be loved. It's possible that your younger self was in a very chaotic situation and you had to, become a hyper rational because you just wanted to make sense of things, right? Or you became a pleaser because you just wanted to help soothe the shenanigans that was happening around you, right? Or, right, any number of things. Like we all respond to things differently. But I think the idea of flashing back to say, hey, things that happened in our childhood, they're still with us today. That's why we talk about the beliefs that lead to your thoughts that lead to your emotions that lead to your actions or your inactions. And it's those actions or inactions that lead to the results that you have in your life. So when you think about your beliefs, that's the core, that's the root of the tree, right? And all these other things are like, how do they show up? And so forgiveness is one of those things where you're digging deep, right? Sometimes your beliefs will become because there's some things you haven't let go of. So if you want to go under the beliefs, what are some of the things that are happening right now? Some of those emotions, forgiveness, right? It's some of those things. So it's kind of connected to what's in the deep roots of what do I believe that's making me show up this way? What do I believe that's making me be triggered by this conversation or this individual or this topic, right? All those things actually can have roots in things that we just haven't let go. And so when she mentions freedom, it's like, are you ever triggered? Are you ever, Do you feel some kind of way? Do you feel like you may not show up the way you'd like? And if that's the case, oftentimes deeper than what you believe, right? Part of what you believe is based on things that you haven't allowed yourself to,
Yeah.
forgive.
Yeah. So one of the things, Dr. Tracy, is that I believe every person deserves the gift of life. And I believe every person is inherently has been created to be good. And so, one of the things that I'm always reminding myself of is what I take into the world is what the world become. And I believe these were the words of Gandhi, and I have to find that quote. And it says that when I am healed, I take more healing into the world. So
Mm.
when I forgive, when I forgive myself, I am then able to take more forgiveness into the world. So the question becomes, how do we want to impact the world in which we live? And so we have to, that's why it's important that this journey that you've taken us on is to
Mhm.
begin to examine ourselves and make good choices and powerful life-changing choices, because the choices we make are the is what we take into the world. And like I say, I just believe that the world is a good place to live, and that life belongs to us all, and every person deserves the gift of life. And so how do I contribute to that? And that's what I think living powerfully together, being better together, has done, is really created, opened up a community wide where we see the inherent value and worth of each human being, and that we can contribute to not only our personal lives but to the lives of others.
I love that so much. I think when people can acknowledge the pain and actually think through, maybe even write down what's happening, being in a position to really imagine what would it look like, right? It is about love. It is about imagining the best, assuming the best, and imagining what your life would look like, right? If you didn't hold on to any of this anymore, like being in a position to identify those feelings and then letting them go. That's going to be part of the process, and knowing, right, that you are in a position to, um, again, set yourself free. And when you tell your story, sometimes just in telling your story, someone else is like, oh my God, me too. So when you talked about the healing circle and the doing this together, just being willing to acknowledge, I got something to forgive, right? Like I've been harmed, right? And saying it in such a way that is public, right? That allows you to free someone else to say, oh, me too. She was in an abusive relationship. Oh my God, I never told anybody. Me too, right? So, oh, she had that experience at work. I thought it was just me. I didn't tell anybody. Oh, she had that, you know what I mean? Or he had that happen to him too. Me too. So there's something about that. I'm not going to call it the Me Too movement, but
Yeah.
something about that Me Too concept that, like, oh wow, right? I'm not alone in this.
Well, yeah, there's power in the story, and that was it's very powerful. Like you said, when we start to tell our stories, it really opens us up to seeing that we're not alone, for one, and that we're really okay, that we've had an experience in life that we need to try and overcome. So being vulnerable enough to share our stories with others is a pathway towards healing, because it allows someone else to say, yeah, it's okay for me to forgive, so that I can move on to a greater life. So I just think that sharing our stories is really the pathway to life.
I love it. Brene Brown is one of my favorite people, and she likes to say, stories that we own, we get to write the ending. And stories that we don't own, they literally own us.
That's right.
They own us, right? Like I don't know what to do because I'm suffocating, right? I can't, I can't move to the next level because I'm strangled by this story, for example. But when you own the story and you're like, this is my story now, This is what I'm doing to work through this process. And this is what my future is going to look like. I'm choosing, like you said, to forgive. And I'm choosing to take actions. I'm choosing when I see my saboteurs, right? I'm choosing to do something differently. I'm choosing to pivot immediately. I'm choosing not to go down that path. I'm choosing to thrive. And I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah. So sometimes, we are not, we don't necessarily create the stories that we're in, but we certainly have the authority and the power to change the future story. We get to write, as they sometimes say, the last chapter of the story.
Mm.
We get to shape that story the way we want to have it, uh, to be who we really are. So I think just this whole journey of you know guiding us through this whole process, of living powerfully and living authentically, um, is very healing. Very healing.
It is. It is. And I just want to say thank you to you again. You showed up with just this level of expertise, but then just peace. I'm just so grateful. When God brought us back together, I'm like, look at my people. Look at this. I was like, I was so excited. So we can keep talking, but I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop right now because we're inviting people to join us on Monday at 6 p.m. We're actually gonna start a little early. We're probably gonna show some recaps and highlights from prior weeks. So if you've not been with us, and even though this is a 6-week period, you can join us on Monday. It's a complete each session. We will bring in some highlights from the prior work, but you can start wherever you are with whatever you are, and we will make sure all of this content is made available to you. But forgiveness is a fresh start too, right? Joining us, whether you have heard anything before, you won't be lost because we're showing up, and Debrina is going to take people through part of her forgiveness process that creates a space for you to let go and to understand what the next steps need to be, and then I'm super excited. We're gonna June 10th, which is June 3rd, is going to be forgiveness. June 10th, we're going to be doing some recaps and asking people to tell their stories and continuing to package what next steps can and will look like, but really creating a space for anyone who hasn't been a part of this prior to this to really get some nuggets that they can activate in their lives. And we're going to be talking even more about this documentary that we're going to be creating, because what we realize is there's just too much great content. This has been so transformational. We're going to create a space for these 6 weeks, as well as, detailed 6 weeks together, plus detailed interviews we've been doing. We're going to create a space for this to actually be in community in such a way that you will continue to be able to leverage these resources, but also pass them down, share them with others, and go on a journey of true transformation. So I could not be more excited.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Where are people going to meet us at? They can join us online through these same channels: Facebook, LinkedIn, National Black MBA Association, It's All Bigger Than Me, MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Baptist Church, New Beginnings Christian Fellowship. We're going to be live on Rainier Avenue Radio. So we're live. We're putting it out there into the universe for sure. And where do we find you? What's your address at MLK?
4510 Northeast 10th Street.
That's right, y'all. We'll see you on Monday at 6 o'clock. Thank you. This is so awesome.